Welcome back to another episode of Wayfinders, and we have here Jeff Clark and Heather Louts, and they're both going to straighten me out on some issues. Maybe. Because today we're talking about learning.
Oh.
Lifelong learning and how people learn and all that kind of stuff. I just want to point out that it's part of the 6 main chapters. We already did mind, we did physical body, emotions. Is that how you...
It's not the one.
No?
It's spirit. We did about spirit. We did about learning.
Okay.
We were doing about learning because we skipped over it. Then there was work. There's community.
Oh.
And there's health. And what was the last one? Maybe family?
I think so.
Was it family?
Yep.
Yes. So
Well,
there we go.
I told you you'd straighten me out.
Yeah, you brought out the health one.
Well, I have the
Which
health
is
one
great.
out here,
That's
which-
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe there's we'll have to jump to that later.
Oh, well,
okay.
I think everything is about good health, right?
Yes.
Being in oneness,
We
being
will have everything-
comfortable with your health.
In print on paper so people can identify all
Yeah.
of them, and we'll straighten it out that way.
Yeah, good.
And the example that we're using is each one of these chapters, we get more in depth. 6 sub-chapters for each one. So today, we're going to start out with how and interests, is that right? Mm-hmm. And who wants to kick that off?
I think Heather
Okay.
should start it.
So who are you in oneness and how do you learn? Do you learn by touching? Do you learn by hearing? Do you learn by writing and speaking? Do you learn by logic? Are you mathematical? Are you analytical? So you have to find out how you learn. By reasoning, do you learn better in groups? Do you learn by yourself? How do you learn? You know,
I learn better if I can actually do something.
hands-on.
And probably with somebody else, but definitely hands-on.
Nice.
I got to be able to actually
Yeah.
go through the steps.
So we're also going to talk about your interest and how that drives you to learn these things. And people ought to research a little bit about what it is that they're interested in, what they feel passionate about.
What are you interested in?
I like history, for one thing. I think you learn a lot from history.
Yes.
And I also like to look at, I like learning just for the sake of learning. The more you learn, the more exciting it gets. We mentioned last time about, we used to have a bookmobile come to our community when we were kids.
I remember that.
They
Yeah.
still exist.
They do.
I did, I checked.
The bookmobiles are, it was fantastic. And
They don't look like what they used to look
No.
like, but they're still there.
But that got
Lovely.
us interested.
Yeah.
And then we would say, oh, what's that big bus doing over here, whatever, and the kids would go, and then you get a card. Never had anything before, an ID of any kind, and you got my library card.
Wow.
And then I could actually walk out with some books under my arm.
Your
It was-
first identification.
It was the most amazing thing, really.
Nice.
And
You were
I've
hot stuff, huh?
been doing it ever since, I think,
Yeah.
from that. So part of that would be the learning is where, that's where do you do the learning? Do you do it at home, do it at the bookmobile, the library, or...
Now we have online.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of free learning places like khanacademy.org or edx.org that you can go through free classes. MIT has free classes. Harvard has free classes.
Stanford Business
Stanford has.
There's a ton of
Princeton has. Yale has. All the colleges are really looking at inspiring people and helping people to be lifelong learners.
So first you can find out what you have in your area. And we're talking about the libraries. You also have the
Love
universities,
libraries.
like Union College Library
Yes.
and the others. And then sort of travel a little bit out of your area to do a little more research in nearby day trips and places that you can go a short period of time, museums and so forth. One of my favorite places is up in Glens Falls and the Hyde Collection. We have a great collection of art, but also have a great library and gallery and a very interesting place.
It is, it's a great place.
And
Museums and libraries are lovely places.
yeah,
I could live in a library easily.
yeah.
I'd rather live in a museum. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're one and the same to me. The ancient knowledge. I think there's the knowledge of everything in a book somewhere.
I believe you're right. Speaking of ancient, I'm reading a book now, about halfway through it, It's called Aristotle's Way.
Ooh.
And essentially, that Aristotle taught the way to happiness,
Yes.
and everything since him is basically the same thing that he taught. But one of the things I thought was very interesting, in ancient Greece, the Spartans, who were warlike and very aggressive, taught everybody the same stuff. So if you were a poor kid or a rich kid or whatever, you all learned the same, you had the same education,
Nice.
which is interesting because
Yes.
Aristotle thought that you should take the same basics and then customize it
I believe that.
to each person.
Yeah, I believe that everybody is different and everybody has different ways of learning and growing up and different ways of being.
Yeah.
So that fits that, accommodate that. I was on a commission to create the school plans for 2025, I think it was. They were in kindergarten that year. And it was interesting to see how the students would come in and ask for that, ask for it to be, the courses to be, that it would pertain to them particularly, and they could pick out, they have a name for it now, it's called project learning maybe, and they pick out the things that they enjoy about something, and then they apply the mathematics, the history, all the different things to that subject area so that the child stays interested in it.
Right.
And they'll
See,
go forward in all different directions out of that.
And the next step to that is that in order to be happy, you have to feel that what you're doing has some meaning,
Yes.
some relevance
Some
to society,
fulfillment.
to the community. And that's, the author quotes a study, I think it was England, where 40-some% of the people studied didn't feel like their jobs were important. And so, by taking and finding out what somebody's interested in
Yes.
and helping guide them or helping
Or
them find a
curious
path,
about even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
then, that leads them towards something they think is relevant,
Yes.
and, that it benefits them and it benefits society as a result of that.
Well, part of the how, I go back to talking about history, and you say you read a certain book, and then you want to find out where that came from. So you go to a source, and then you find out where that came from. Like in philology, you go back to the original meaning of the word. A lot of times what we have words today is not exactly what it meant when it was first come out. So one way is to go back through history,
Yes.
so you can expand and grow and learn more and more and more about whatever that given subject is. And another one is, we were talking about the tools to learning, the internet. We talked about books. The internet is another one. Almost anything is out there is available on the internet right now. It's just a tremendous source of information.
Oh yeah, if I need to fix something, I usually go to YouTube.
Yes.
And I just put it in,
Yep.
and it's amazing, the
Isn't it?
accuracy that you can come up with.
Yeah.
If you have to repair an appliance, you can put in that appliance at year and
I know, it's
model,
beautiful.
and it's probably going to come up, and somebody's going to show you exactly.
Yep, a
what to
video.
do. Yeah.
And another
Of
one,
them doing it. I know.
another one would be the tools would be mentorship, people, what you can learn from other people, other people's experiences.
And this is where, what color is your parachute comes in. About knowing who you are and what your interests are. You have to know who you are, really, to know what your interests are, don't you? Or you have to know what you're interested in, what you're curious about, and that's what you go for. When you have that interest or that a little spark of something, you'll go for it. So what color is your parachute is great. I also looked up the one that's kind of like Myers-Briggs, but it's a freebie, and it's called 16personalities.com. It's a free personality test based on Carl Jung and
See, now I only
And
have 12
Myers-Briggs.
personalities. I don't.
Are you sure?
Still looking for the other 4.
I know where they are.
There's also a wonderful way that to bring in astrology, quantum physics, the I Ching, ancient wisdoms of the stars, into the jovianarchive.com. And there you can get your chart too. All you have to put in is your name, your date of birth, your place of birth. And you get a chart about who you are and all the planets and how you're going to live your life and what stage you're in the 3 different areas of each gene key. It's kind of like your chromosomes and your genes. It's taking into consideration a lot of different theories and practices and things that are actually true, scientifically true. My body graph is also in the Jovian Archive, and you can find it on jovianarchive.com. And my body graph kind of explains the Jovian Archive chart that you get, which is a triangular chart. It's kind of in depth, but if you want to know about yourself in depth, you want to know where your divinity is and where you're in your shadow, or where you're just like in the middle of those two, that's a good way to go.
And why do people want to learn? What does it do for you? Why do people, what's the why of it?
It lights me up. Like you said, you
Yeah.
get interested and you get excited. I love learning. It just lights me up.
Well, you could learn about your career, or you could learn
Yeah.
about your work, or you could learn about your trade, like manufacturing things or craft and all that. But you also learn for the sake of learning. You learn for, from history as well. And you got to have why it's important and how it relates to you and your personality and your life and everything else. You have to start making that connections. And we had this discussion last time about one of our other subjects. How do you know if you're making the right decision? How do you know if you're learning about something worthwhile? Because you can binge watch CNN all you want. I don't know if you're going to learn very much, and then the next day it's changed. So if you're looking at what you're all about, getting in touch with what you're all about, and wanting to learn more to sort of drive you closer and closer to a goal, or to a dream life, or whatever it is, a perfect living, or whatever it is that you're looking for. So how do you know? And the answer is if it brings you closer to your goal. Or
To
if
your
it doesn't.
joy, to that. But you're going to get a feeling about that. It's not outside of you. You're going to get that feeling inside of you that, I like this.
How do we deal with the turmoil and trouble we are faced with every day? How do we find the personal strength to move our lives forward against the many headwinds that seem to conspire against us? It isn't a secret, it's simply a journey, and that's life. Our goal is to help you map out your personal path to a complete concept of who you are and want to be. The thing is, this project requires money. We can't do it without help. So we're going to reward your support with access to a variety of sources and provide discounts on programs. Go to www.communitymediaservice.com and send us $20 to make the initial friend list, or give $50 and you'll be placed on the special friend list for ongoing benefits. Help us make this happen. Help yourself, help others. Join us on this special project. Go to www.communitymediaservice.com and click your choice, either $20 or $50, and stay tuned for more. Well, and
This
sometimes
brings
you
me
get
peace and
the
joy.
opposite feeling. I read something the other day, and I was like a third of it into it. I said, "This is stupid.
You don't want to know this.
I don't care what they're saying about that. I don't know who this person is. The subject." I said, "I'm out.
It's hard to
Got it.
Because I just don't care."
But it's
Right.
hard to unsee it or unhear it or unlearn it.
Yeah, but now I've forgotten what it was. So
You did.
Yeah, and I went on to something else
Okay.
that I thought was more interesting, and it captured my attention, and so I pursued it and followed through on
So
that.
you found it was the absence of joy,
Yeah,
the absence of liking.
I said consciously.
Yeah,
I said,
absence of it.
why am I reading this? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Now, in the when do you learn? I mean, schedule
Oh, yeah,
it
when
into
do
your
you learn?
life. Put
When
it
do you
in
best
there.
learn?
So for me, it's in the morning.
Me too.
I get up in the morning and I can take on anything. I
Yeah.
can take on Einstein or whatever.
It's a brand new day.
But by the time I get into the evening,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know what I do
Well,
in the
you
morning.
get tired by that time.
Yes.
You've been doing a lot of things all day. And speaking of Einstein, I used this quote just recently, and I won't say why, but Einstein's observation was the difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has its limits.
Aha, so we
Oh.
you finished the sentence. So
Love it. Love it.
And stupidity does not apparently have any
Of course.
limits.
I think it's important for people to say they're going to put, as part of their day, they're going to spend some time learning something new. They just make yourself do that.
I love that.
Lifelong
idea.
learning. It's
Yeah,
important.
Yes.
Put it in there and say, at this time, during this day, like I get up in the morning and go through your usual routines and stuff like that, but then I'll always put 15 minutes to a half an hour there
Nice.
where I'll say, what can I reach for that's not readily right in front of me?
You're
What can I
creating-
go after?
You're creating synapses in your brains by doing that. And you're creating new synapses. So you're creating new pathways for your brain to function better.
And that
Because-
doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could be a good thing.
It could
For
be
your
a
brain
good
to
thing.
work better? Oh,
No,
that's
some
gonna be
people
too
with
funny.
synapses, they might say, is it,
Nerves in your brain.
It's okay. It's a good thing. It's just making connections and growing your brain, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
Might keep you out of the
Expanding
old
it.
age home someday.
Yes, the dementia and the Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Well,
When you
people-
use it,
people sometimes, the meaning of words is very important.
Yes, it
That's why a
is.
dictionary with this whole learning thing is a very handy thing to have.
yes.
Because when you're reading something, you might want to get it in the right context.
Or Google.
I have a dictionary that goes back to the 1850s. Because when I'm reading a book that's 100 years old, I want to make sure that the explanation
Is
is
still
what's-
valid.
and-
Yeah.
and
The
it
one
is
they
what it's
meant.
supposed to be. We had, one time we were at work and we had a conference of all the department managers over at Boscov's. And one of the department managers totally got the meaning of a word wrong. And the word was subterfuge. And
Okay.
she says, we need more subterfuge.
Sure
And,
we do.
we got to start promoting subterfuge over here. And I'm thinking, okay, bring out the dictionary.
Yeah,
take
check
a
this
look
out.
Yes. And
at
the
what
word,
it is.
And the
because-
meaning of the word.
Yeah, and when you're reading a piece, well, it's also part of the learning process. You're going down that path towards your goal, and is this path, this learning path, is that on the way to your goal? So you have to know what those goals are. Or you have to take some time every day to figure out what those goals are and if you're on the path to those goals. Because that's important with learning and all the other things that we discussed. Are you on that right path? Or are you binge watching something that's maybe not helpful?
It's taken you off your path. It's
Yeah.
taken you outside of yourself. Because I only think you can get to there from inside yourself.
And that's where we get to the next part, which is who. Who you're learning from.
Yeah.
Who are your mentors? Who are your examples? What are you watching? Okay, now, lately, we've had a change, like CNN and these other news networks. We got a lot of stuff going on in the news. And we've had a change, because now it's news for news sake. In other words, they're promoting things because that's what people want to watch, or what they want to hear, or where they want to go. It sells.
Is it good news?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But for them, it doesn't have to be, because they want something, they're gonna have more viewers and more, more people.
It's sensationalism.
Yeah, and it may
in
not
many
be good
cases.
for you.
Yeah, are you watching Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street, or are you watching, Rush Limbaugh and,
And the attacks on
Fox
people.
News? I mean, that's what input you get. Has a lot to do with your thought process, and whether you're getting a mixed, balanced input. Sometimes I do force myself to listen and watch some of that stuff just to
Yeah, see where
make
the world's
sure
at. Yeah.
I'm kind of taking my own temperature
Yes.
by saying, okay, what's this person's perspective, and is there validity? What can I learn from them?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't learn from people you disagree with or don't think like, then you're just regenerating the same stuff, and that's not good either.
I believe that
sorry, go ahead.
teachers are one of two things. They're either to emulate because you resonate with it, or to evolve, to change. And you just said that, right?
Yeah.
I think teachers are about half and half.
And listening to the news thing, for example, might be important for your own peace of mind or whatever, to kind of know what's going on. But the 24-hour news cycle is not a healthy thing, where people always have to know what's going on. You know, you get home, you turn it on, and you go to bed, you know, before you go to bed. There are people who really get tied to that. And that's why we talk about scheduling.
I think it's addicting.
Yeah, and we want to say, yeah, get the news at a certain point, but then turn it off, you know?
Give
And
your
then-
brain a chance to
Yeah.
ratchet back a little bit, because if you go to sleep or if you go to bed with all that stuff churning in your mind, you're probably not going to get a good night's rest,
Yeah,
which is going to affect you the next day, which
Yes.
is, you know, I mean, it's
Yes.
a compounding effect.
Yes.
That, you know, you shouldn't let things like the media influence or affect your life in that manner. You need to, again, as we often say, be aware. And it's just that case of saying, okay, you know, maybe I'm going to make a rule of turning the TV off at a certain time every night. And, you know, decompressing for half an hour. Or whatever feels good for you, but it's something that people need to give some consideration to.
but the bottom line, I think Heather will agree with this, the bottom line is that we get inundated with thousands of messages every day.
Oh,
Radio, TV, billboards, you're driving
Emails.
on the highway, you go to buy a cup of coffee, there's every, and when you think about how much information is being thrown at you every single day, it's like as much information as someone in 100 years ago would get in a week. You
Yeah.
get in an hour.
yes, that's true.
And we're advocating to people, that's why, one of the reasons why we're doing this, is that be aware of what it's doing to you and how much of your time it's taking up and what effect it's having.
Yeah.
And if you want to say, okay, I have to listen to the news, do that short period and then move on, but also do your learning and get involved in your community and meet people and meet mentors and get information and move around through all the different parts.
Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The spirituality that we talked about last time and all that. I think when we're talking about learning, one of the first things I'd like people to do is look at their schedule and realize how it's affecting them. Okay? Quiet time
Yes.
is really
Very
important.
important. Very, very, very important. I think that's the only time we get back to ourselves. I know that's the only time I get back to myself, is when I'm quiet and I can hear better. I can hear the guidance of my guides much, much clearer if I'm not so noisy, you know, if my mind isn't running around.
And wouldn't you think that today's media of all types, news media, marketing, all this stuff, today's media, they don't want you to have quiet time.
No, they don't.
They want you to pick up the phone and order this thing and buy this and do that and go here and spend
Yeah.
money and, you know.
Well, when I was running radio stations, I would set aside some time Friday afternoon. And sometimes it was, I'd close the door and just take half an hour to think.
Nice.
Other times, I would have a meeting with somebody, and we would review the week and discuss things that might come up in anticipation of the weekend, when you're more relaxed and you're not under so much pressure, so that your brain kind of works on it, and then by Sunday night, Monday morning, you've got a pretty good idea
Yes.
of what needs to be addressed, and then you can go back at it and say, okay, this is what we talked about, or this is what I thought about, and here's what we're going to do about it. But you have to give yourself some time.
Yeah, and you did that through the nights and through the days that happened.
Yeah.
Because you did that on a Friday.
Right. And
You
that-
purposely
you
did that
set
with your intention. You purposely did that.
Yes.
Brilliant.
And that's actually a great segue into the main issue that we're talking about, where all of these components of today's learning, you know, we're talking about who are you in oneness and how do you get there from here? how do you, here is where we're inundated with all this information. And how do you get to a more full life from where we are right now? Well, the first thing is you have to calm down. You have
Take
to
a breath.
quiet down
Take a
everything.
breath. Take a
Okay? It's almost like you have to take a bath in silence and allow...
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, and allow the real you to come to the surface. So you can, a lot of people do a little routine, which I think makes a lot of sense. And in this routine, they're going to look at stripping away those things that are time consuming and distracting and, you know, all this. They go through some kind of procedure to distance themselves from all the confusion, right? And then they're going to journal, or journaling is a good way to do
Yes.
it. And they're going to journal something
Or
where,
speak it into a recorder.
yeah, if you had to design a perfect day, what would be in that perfect day?
Ooh, I like
You're
this.
early in the morning, before all the phones ringing and the messages are coming and everything else, and it's semi-dark and the sun's coming up, and you sit down there and you say, you know what, if today was a perfect day, what would it be? And you know what you would say? You'd say things like, I'd spend some time with my kids or my grandkids. I'll learn something today. I'll maybe take a trip out of my comfort zone and go to another location that I haven't been to before. Or I'll do any one of a number of things. And so you'll design. You get to be the creator.
Yay.
And you design your perfect day. Now you have a path. So your path to happiness could be along that perfect day.
Wayfinders pathways
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
discovery.
Yeah.
Love it.
But we got to get people to be able to see that. So we're going to talk about being able to, through journaling or through some other practice, being able to design a perfect day, which could become a perfect week or a perfect month, a perfect year, and a perfect life in that sense.
A wonderful life,
Well, and if you
yes.
get up and you have no idea of what you're going to do on a particular day, you don't start off very well. You know, you need to have some purpose and some direction for where you're going to go if, you know, you want to accomplish anything that day. Otherwise, you might as well go fishing or
Well, that's the perfect,
That might be a good way to find out what you need to do.
could be.
You know,
And
go
how-
fishing.
well, how do you know what would be a perfect day? Is a day lived with purpose. Living on purpose. And with that, we'll come to the end of our, boy, that was a fast half an hour.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we move right along. So welcome back to the next episode. And we'll come back and we'll do a more in-depth view. We're going to do spirit first, I think.
Yep. We're going to do
And
spirit
so we're going to
first.
do the 6 sub-chapters of spirit next.
Lovely.
Okay?